The name of the movie is Mean Machine. The movie starts with a guy named Danny, who has been driving crazy while drinking alcohol. Suddenly, he is caught by the police in a nightclub. Danny was the former captain of the England football team. Now he has been sentenced to 3 years in prison. And although he was one of the best players in England, now he ended his sporting career because he was fixing matches. Danny is transferred to the maximum security prison in England, Long March. He got to prison, and of course he was treated very badly. This is in addition to the fact that all the prisoners were waiting for him to curse him. He met the warden Burton and his assistants Ratchet and Hater. Burton told him that the chief wanted him to coach the football team, and at the same time told him he had better turn down the request before he attacked him too. He then went to his cell to find out that he would be sharing a room with different people. There was an old kind-hearted cleaner in prison who Danny would work with in cleaning the prison. After that he met Charlie Sykes, who is very famous in prison for his strength. He tells Danny that he lost a lot of money because of him in Germany and England matches, and that he is the boss in jail, and then he leaves. After that, he asked the old man why the prisoners treated him badly. He told him that the prisoners were upset with him because he had achieved everything one wished for in his life, but at the same time, he lost everything because of his actions. But unlike all of them, Nitro, who served food to the prisoners, was obsessed with Danny. Because of that, he told him that he could help him with anything he wanted. After he sat down at the table to eat, a prisoner sat in front of him, and he also told him that he could help him. And he told him that his name was Massive. As for his companions in a cell, they are 2 people. One of them is called Reg, who is Iranian, and the other is called Trojan, an African. They were playing chess. Trojan hates Danny very much and hasn't hesitated to tell him about it. We see a prisoner wearing a suit that differs from other prisoners, and his physical structure is very strong, and the man was under strict guard. Meanwhile, Danny is accompanied by the old man who begins to tell him the story of the man in the different suit. He told him that this person entered the prison 6 months ago, and since that time the guards are by his side day and night, because he killed 23 men with his bare hands. In the end, he advised him not to eat with him at the same table even if he was handcuffed. He then met the chief who asked him to coach the team, and he told him that the team always takes second place and now wants to get first place. Danny tried to evade it and told him that he had not played in 2 years. But the chief surprised him by saying that he had transferred him to prison specifically to train the team. Later on, Danny goes to eat, and there he meets Nitro again and starts talking to him. They are interrupted by 2 men who want to fight Danny. A quarrel broke out between them until the guards intervened and separated them. They took Danny to solitary confinement and then moved him to meet the chief. He told the chief that all he wanted was to spend his remaining time in prison well, which is exactly 12 months. The chief interrupted him, telling him that the period had become 3 years because of a quarrel with the prisoners, and all this to put pressure on him to train his team. He returned to solitary confinement. Massive took him some food and suggested that he tell the chief that the best way to train his team was to play against the prisoners. Danny pitched the idea to the chief, and he agreed. But Danny had a condition that he himself choose the team of prisoners that they will play against, in addition to not interfering with the other guards during the match. He starts assembling the team with Massive's help. But suddenly a guard meets Massive and tells him that Danny will use him for fame and abandon him at the first opportunity. When Danny was in the prison yard, he saw that Charlie's men were playing the ball very well, and before he made a decision to join them in the team, Massive asked him not to do so, because Charlie was dealing in drugs inside the prison with the help of the chief. Meanwhile, the chief was talking to Charlie about a man who beat him in a bet in which he lost $5,000. Charlie tells him he lost the bet because he bet on the wrong person, but he tells him he bet on the winner. Charlie tells him that W is a place, not a person, as he thinks. As for Nitro, he told the guard Richard that he wanted to work for him in telling him information about Danny, and in return, he wanted to transfer him to another place. So the guard agreed. Meanwhile, one of the guards was bothering Massive and then started beating him, while the rest of the prisoners watched. Danny suddenly intervened to resolve the conflict, which led to his imprisonment in solitary confinement. But after a short period, he was released from solitary confinement at the chief's request. Rehearsals begin and the other prisoners begin to laugh at the new team. But Danny is very optimistic. Meanwhile, the chief was on the phone with a man who threatened to blow up his new car if he didn't pay him. Indeed, when the chief went to his car, he found a barrel of gasoline, and the car was covered in gasoline. At this time, Nitro went to meet Richard, and he told him that Danny refused to include him in the team, which annoyed Richard very much. so he asked Nitro to find a solution to dismantle the team. Suddenly, one of Charlie's men, who was selling drugs in prison, was stopped by the guard Richard and searched him. At this time, Nitro went to one of Charlie's friends and told him that Danny was the one who exposed them. Because of what Nitro said, they grab Danny in the toilet and start threatening to gouge out his eyes. But before that, Burton entered them, and when he asked him about the cut on his face, he told him that he had cut himself while shaving. Burton leaves the lavatory after believing Danny, who hid the truth because he wanted to get Charlie's men on his team. Indeed, the man who attacked him joined the team, but that wasn't enough because he wanted the rest of the men on his team, which would have been impossible without Charlie's consent. He then went to Charlie and tried to convince him, but he refused and told him it was impossible to bet against England. He is now back with his friends, and he tells Massive that he failed to impress Charlie. They are interrupted by a prisoner named Billy who tells him that he has an idea and asks him to enter him as a reserve player for the team, which Danny agreed to. Meanwhile, the chief was talking to Charlie about the man threatening him, and he told him that he was the reason for what happened to him. Meanwhile, Danny was with the old man to ask him why he was in prison. He told him that he had blown up someone's house without knowing that his infant daughter was inside, and he was very sorry for what he had done. Afterwards, Charlie goes to tell Danny that he agreed to his request on the condition that he get into a fist fight with a man of his choosing, which he agrees to. As for the guard, Richard, he scolds Nitro for failing in his mission, but he gave him one last chance to get rid of Danny, who was preparing for the match at the time. He won the fight, and Charlie's men joined the team. Danny started coaching them, but they needed a goalkeeper. Charlie suggested Monk as a goalkeeper, and after they agreed, Charlie asked the chief to help him get him out of the cell. In return, he would help him pay the debt by betting that the guards would win. Danny went to Monk and convinced him to play with them, and he agreed, and they started rehearsing. At this time, Nitro prepared a bomb to kill Danny and put it in his locker. Also around this time, Danny was with the team and remembered that he had forgotten a tape the chief's assistant had given him in the locker, and he decided to go get it. But the old man took the key from him and went instead of it, so the bomb exploded and he died. At this time, Danny was telling the team that he betrayed his team earlier because he was threatened with death. As for Nitro, he signed papers that Richard gave him for the purpose of transferring him to another prison, but it turned out that they were his execution papers. On the day of the match, Charlie presents them with a Mean Machine t-shirt. The first half ended with the victory of the prisoners, which disturbed the chief, so he told Danny that Nitro had signed a confession, that he had killed the old man, and that he had helped him kill him, and this charge would imprison him for 20 years. He asked him to betray the team in exchange for his acquittal. He refused at first, but in the end he decided to pretend that he was injured in the match, so they took him out. But when he saw his team lose, he returned to the field and won the penalties. In the end, the chief's car explodes and everyone is against him, even Charlie. Here the movie ends. Thank you for watching.